Merry Meet Annie here. This reading is from Edwin Way Teal's prose, The Great Tree. For a great tree, death comes as a gradual transformation. Its vitality ebbs slowly. Even when life has abandoned it entirely, it remains a majestic thing. On some hilltop, a dead tree may dominate the landscape for miles around. Alone among living things, it retains its character and dignity after death. Plants wither, animals disintegrate, but a dead tree may be as arresting, as filled with personality in death as it is in life. Even in its final moments, when the massive trunk lies prone and it has moldered into a ridge covered with mosses and fungi, it arrives to a fitting and noble end. It enriches and refreshes the earth, and later, as part of other green and growing things, it rises again. This reflection for today is one that simply asks that I notice the great trees that surround me. It was interesting when I lived in the suburbs, as each tree stood out so uniquely because there were so few of them, and I knew each one as a special friend through all the seasons. When I moved to the woods, I didn't notice individual trees as much, since they all seemed to blend into a kind of tree community. So I am called to pay attention to individual trees in this reflection, and I could do so for hours upon hours. I'm especially honored to be able to explore this poem in relation to the trees that surround me, that have lived their lives and now lie upon the ground. That was not part of my suburban reflections, as all the trees were so very carefully tended and manicured and removed when they died. My second reflection for this, I think, was actually the original reflection for the day. I think The Great Tree was added later. It's a bit of writing by Hermann Hesse in Trees, Reflections and Poems. Well, it's a bit of a long read, several paragraphs for me to share with you. So those of you who would like to leave the video now, I offer for consideration the prompt to consider the standing and fallen trees that are part of your surroundings, and to seek the inspiration that is part of both their standing and their falling. And this reading from Hermann Hesse. For me, trees have always been the most penetrating preachers. I revere them when they live in tribes and families, in forests and groves, and even more. I revere them when they stand alone. They are like lonely persons, not like hermits who have stolen away out of some weakness, but like great solitary men like Beethoven and Nietzsche. In their highest boughs, the world rustles. Their roots rest in infinity, but they do not lose themselves there. They struggle with all the force of their lives for one thing only: to fulfill themselves according to their own laws, to build up their own form, to represent themselves. Nothing is holier, nothing is more exemplary than a beautiful, strong tree. When a tree is cut down and reveals its naked death wound to the sun, one can read its whole history in the luminous, inscribed disk of its trunk, in the rings of its years, its scars. All the struggling, all the suffering, all the sickness, all the happiness and prosperity stand truly written. The narrow years and the luxurious years in the rings. The attacks withstood and the storms endured. And every young farm boy knows that the hardest and noblest wood has the narrowest rings, that high on the mountains and in continuing danger, the most indestructible, the strongest, the ideal trees grow. Trees are sanctuaries. Whoever knows how to speak to them, whoever knows how to listen to them, can learn the truth. They do not preach learning and precepts. They preach, undeterred by particulars, the ancient law of life. A tree says, "A kernel is hidden in me." a spark, a thought. I am life from eternal life. The attempt and the risk that the Eternal Mother took with me is unique. Unique the form and veins of my skin. Unique the smallest play of leaves in my branches and the smallest scar on my bark. I was made to form and reveal the eternal in my smallest special detail. A tree says, "My strength is trust. I know nothing about my fathers. I know nothing about the 1,000 children that every year spring out of me. I live out the secret of my seed to the very end, and I care for nothing else. I trust that God is in me. I trust that my labor is wholly out of this trust. I live." When we are stricken and cannot bear our lives any longer, then a tree has something to say to us. Be still. Be still. Look at me. Life is not easy. Life is difficult. Now, those are childish thoughts. Let God speak within you, and your thoughts will grow silent. You are anxious because your path leads away from mother and home, but every step and every day leads you back again to the mother. Home is neither here nor there. Home is within you, or home is nowhere at all. A learning to wander tears my heart when I hear trees rustling in the wind at evening. If one listens to them silently for a long time, this longing reveals its kernel, its meaning. It is not so much a matter of escaping from one's suffering, though it may seem to be so. It's a longing for home, for a memory of the mother, for new metaphors for life. It leads home. Every path leads homeward. Every step is birth. Every step is death. Every grave is mother. So the tree rustles in the evening when we stand uneasy before our own childish thoughts. Trees have long thoughts, long breathing and restful, just as they have longer lives than ours. They are wiser than we are, as long as we do not listen to them. But when we have learned how to listen to trees, then the brevity and the quickness and the childlike hastiness of our thoughts achieve an incomparable joy. Whoever has learned to listen to trees no longer wants to be a tree. He wants to be nothing except what he is. That is home. That is happiness. I wish you all mirth and reverence in the season of Yule. All hail the trees. Mary Part.